Okay, so we are gathered here today, as people say in funerals, to mourn the loss of many jobs. Kidding. Well, 50% kidding. To discuss AI. And there's a lot of news lately about a new tech that's entering the market and how that's going to change things. So we thought we'll just have a general discussion about what was the current tech with OpenAI, what the promise is with this new technology that's coming out of China, and the impact on people's employments, industries, and jobs, and how people can potentially use it to their benefit, and who's going to be laid off and fired as a result of it, and what processes are going to be made super, super easy. So, what do you think? This week was pretty big, right?
Yeah, the news of DeepSeek become public and the effect on the U.S. share market and Nasdaq's share market all went red, and the biggest loser was Nvidia, who lost. The value was $2 trillion, and they lost 10% of the share value in a day. But it recovered. This is like the time that we're talking is 3 days after those announcements.
Yeah, obviously, it's not a reflection on where this is not a podcast about about stocks, but the news was so big that had a negative result on a lot of U.S. behemoths. Nvidia worth about $3 trillion, just because this new generative AI technology offered to do almost the same thing at substantially less cost. The main barrier to entry, as I understand, to generative AI right now is the training cost, the amount of money you have to invest to train the AI. What DeepSeek is claiming that whereas other companies need billions of dollars to do it, or hundreds of millions of dollars, they do it for $6 million. Obviously, I think that's a little bullshit. You can probably times that. But even if you X that by 10, say $50 million, it's still at a substantial less cost than some more entrenched competitors like OpenAI, NVIDIA, etc. That delivers the chipsets that enable generative AI to learn.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, I'm not the reason that DeepSeek is making such a big wave is the way of thinking about AI. So they're changing some of the rules that used to be running, and even now that we're talking about definitely the big guys, Google, ChatGPT, Microsoft, all they learning from this and optimizing their process. But the information I gather about DeepSeek is, first of all, you're right. Like the training cost from 100 million, they're claiming bring it down to $5 million.
Billion or million?
100 million.
Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bring it down to $5 million, and they're using less CPUs, like 1/10 of CPU, GPU game processing unit that NVIDIA using it to process those data. And the reason they did it is they thought about the data. They say, okay, the information is like a calculation with 32 decimals for every question or getting information. And they say, do we need really 32 decimals? Why not 8 decimals for calculation? And we get like 95% of accuracy, but saving 75% of time and investment.
So essentially, it's like the way it's analogous to music files, whereas MP3 compared to other files that audio files appreciate compresses files to a point that it diminishes quality per se, but the human ear cannot mostly hear the difference. Same thing is here. It spits out an answer that may not be as accurate as generative AI that's based on technology and learning that costs hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's within enough ballpark, and everyone, if we're talking about, I don't know, content for marketing, for example, or any piece of written information, it has to go through editing anyway.
Yeah.
So all those cresses will get ironed out.
But they had a clever idea to even solve that problem, that like reducing the quality, is that Uh, Imagine if you talking about some person that who are perfect in um, health, perfect in personal trainer, perfect in engineering. So when somebody like when you talk to AI is like somebody with all of your knowledge, all of those knowledge, and like is call it the for example, if you ask a question from ChatGPT, it brings like 32 trillion agents all together, all the information. But the things that separate out the DeepSeek is they said, okay, let's bring the information and the specialty related to each topic. So let's, if I asking something about health, instead of 32 million data connected information come to something, go to 2 trillion information just about the health. So it's like I'm asking question in some category. So that's reduced the number of data and information and agents coming together to answer you. So by classifying that, by categorizing that, it reduced the number of, it speed up the answer, but by reducing the decimal of the answer, but focusing on the right data, right agents, you fill the gap of if that answer is accurate enough or not compared to other AIs that currently work.
So whereas the current technology essentially mines everything out there to spit out hopefully relevant answers that make sense, this one is far smarter at categorizing which section of the of data to look in to generate your answer. Therefore, requiring to look at a whole lot less CPU power needed, more or less as accurate answer given. Because even though it's looking at less data, it's the data is looking at is higher quality because it's in the more relevant category, as opposed to someone looking in health, someone wanting an answer related to health industry. The generative AI model to date looks at everything from digital marketing to health to supplements to drinks, for example. So something maybe pretty relevant topics. It is. We do need to caveat this by saying it's all promise, it's all announcements. Obviously, none of it has been widely used.
Now I have a personal experience. I said, let's test it. So all the information we told you till now is based on what we learned reading from news and here and there. But
press releases, more or less.
Press release. I did test one question that it's our specialty, that we definitely know the answer. I didn't ask something that I don't know. About our market, our competitors, who doing well in which part. Those kind of questions from all three of them. Gemini, the owner is Google, ChatGPT and DeepSeek. First of all, the answer is not as good as you answer somebody in industry with knowledge. The data gathered from like a news release, websites, so it's not a real what's really happening in the market. It's based on what information that those APIs. So all of them, the result is far behind the human result. That we can talk about it after this example about the content and SEO. Okay, between these three, the worst result about our industry, the information, the things
competitors analysis.
Yeah, competitors analysis. The worst was ChatGPT. DeepSeek, even from the first day announcement, I got better result. But interestingly, Gemini result for our market, information about digital marketing, the big players, those kind of things, closer to what I believe from my information to reality compared to DeepSeek. So my analysis is if DeepSeek is so new and ChatGPT already been there 2 years, close to 2 years, and it's promising for future, and it's some of the things that they claim is, I think it's really reality.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not all like. Otherwise, it wouldn't make so much news. It's people in the industry do some analysis. So still, DeepSeek not the best. still I prefer Gemini for my question for content. I don't know. You talk about content creation, SEO later on, your experience, but it's gonna be a tough competition. It's a big thing in the future, and it's not a single company. It's not gonna be a monopoly. Everybody will work on this because it's the future of human.
Yeah, just to sum it up, I think that the promise of it is not necessarily more accuracy. It's just cheaper. It's a cheaper way of training the generative AI. Allowing for more newcomers for more startups to come in and use this technology in different ways to apply to different industries and roles and positions.
Can I interrupt you? It's a third thing we forget that makes things cheaper. Like if ChatGPT, Gemini, read a sentence like the messy middle, like word by word, put it together. DeepSeek claimed that it's read it as a whole sentence. Like look at it is one glance, not word by word. Yeah. Another way of reducing the time and the CPU needs it, because they believe that like for 100,000 CPU, GPU to process a question for ChatGPT or Gemini is like creating a power plant to run a factory. So they said you don't need to do that. You don't need that much power and energy and CPU and processing for a simple question.
No, and it's just this is analogous to human reading. If you're an elementary reader, you look at letters to make sense of words. If you're better, once you get more advanced, then you look at the words. You no longer look at the letters anymore. More advanced, you look at the entire sentence. Super advanced readers that read a book in a day or a few days, they look at the entire page or the paragraph. And we can see this generative technology is maturing from that elementary analogous human reader to something more mature, where it starts looking at the sentences, hopefully eventually paragraphs, pages, etc., to a point where it needs to look at a whole lot. It just sees the bigger picture as opposed to losing the forest for the trees, in a sense. But yeah, we'll just finish that segment with saying the press release says it's 20 to 50 times cheaper to use than OpenAI model to train it, essentially. So caveat here, take it with a grain of salt. Every technology comes out with a lot of promises. It gets buggies. This is especially coming out of China, so it can be twisted a little bit as well. But hopefully it does.
Yeah, but let's not like if the last part of our podcast. Let's not focus about DeepSeek. Let's focus about AI.
Yeah.
And the future and what's how can it relate to us as if we are if you are an SEO expert, or if you're creating a website or you want to create content, you use it more than
I use it quite a bit. Yes.
How reliable is the result? Do the humans still need to edit the final result?
I absolutely think so. I mean, with the current tech, we're now on the topic of sort of the pace of these AI technologies and how they affect, I suppose, marketing. Our area is search engine marketing, promoting people's businesses in search rankings. But where are we now, and where is this headed? I think it's more or less made very experienced content writers relatively redundant in written asset creation for small to medium-sized businesses in New Zealand. So I'm talking about businesses with like $20,000 to $50,000 of marketing budget every year. These are still growing, and they're bigger fishes for them to fry. There are more pressing issues than to questioning whether our brand voice is right, or whether we're using, they got bigger issues to deal with than getting very granular on a headline. So it's definitely very, very effective for those businesses as far as written asset goes and promoting them in search engine marketing. To an extent, equally as so in copywriting sites. If you have if you have a relatively good writer or someone who can read and write who's confident at it, they ask the right questions, there's a good discovery process. The open, Copilot, Gemini, whichever it is people use, can probably increase your accuracy and output speed by a factor of, let's say, 5. So whereas something that would used to take you 8 hours, I don't see any reason why it should take you any more than 2 hours now. And the third thing is that it's bringing a lot more capability and competency to junior staff, essentially, because they have this essentially quite well experienced assistant that they wouldn't otherwise have in their capacity. They can produce work in terms of assets that's a whole lot more accurate, it's a whole lot faster, it's a whole lot more on point, and a whole lot more quicker, therefore negating much of the need for senior people to be involved either to get hired or train people, because you have this training assistant now for junior staff.
Can I summarize my understanding? So you're saying that it's going to have a big effect on junior level, and it gives, but you still need somebody to drive it. So you still need senior expert person, but help that expert person to save time.
Yes.
And there is, like, at this point, junior jobs is at risk. Things that is repetitive, like doesn't need that much strategic thinking.
I think repetitive jobs have always been at risk with tech innovations. That's always been the story. The speed of which has only increased with generative AI. But I think this technology allows junior staff to be a lot more competent, a lot more efficient, and a lot more accurate, if they want to be. Personally,
yeah. And
I don't want to delve into the territory of whose job is it going to replace or not, because speculation. I think some guesses are as good as the others, some guesses are better.
Just content writers, like talk about content writers.
So content writers depends on the size of the company. Some companies are obviously have matured at a point where we're really talking about market share for them, and they really want share of voice. For those people, yes, you need very seasoned strategists who are obviously brewed through the industry, working with different businesses to get to where they are to be able to help those companies. I don't think AI can help them out. But for smaller companies whose main battle is growing in revenue and getting customers and getting clients, as long as they are relatively competent in speaking and writing the language they're doing business in, I think if the people they work with ask the right questions and they have the right eyes, it negates the need for very expensive, experienced personnel for copywriting and written asset creation.
Great, got it. And my last question, if you have anything else, you can add it after that. What do you think about the future? Now we are Feb 2025.
Mm.
Do you think next year, if we sit here, we say, oh, still AI is not as good as human? Or you think that in a short time or long time, this is a technology that's changing everything, and maybe I'm trying to push my idea as a question. I'm thinking that this thing, AI, is learning so fast, and we are at just the beginning of a change that it can learn and be expert and be better than any expert. Let's talk about just content creators. Better than any content creator. I know the unique people, the people who win Oscars or the best graphic designer, not still like long way to replace them, but the normal senior person or a senior content creator will be replaced by AI. What do you think?
I think it's probably not the best question to ask whose job is going to get replaced, who's at risk.
No. Yeah. Let's not think about the job replacement. How more it can improve.
How much more I can improve? Honestly, with tech, you can just see how much of a different world it is in 2025 relative to 2022, and the pace is only to pick up. Um, I can't estimate the speed of this, but I can confidently predict who's going to be advantaged. People who are lifelong learners, who are not afraid to tackle new systems, new technologies, who are more or less a T-shaped person. They have a specialty in an area, but they're also quite well read, enough to know. They're well read enough if they so that if they delve into another discipline, they can connect the dots and make sense of them easy. In that sense, those people, no matter it will be very, very, very advantaged with these technologies. Coming back down to say what we do, search engine marketing or digital marketing or any marketing companies, I think smaller agencies, smaller firms will be quite advantaged because they operate more agile. Essentially, it's a force multiplier for smaller organizations. Whereas you can take on bigger accounts, more workload, and force multiply your existing people. Whereas before you would have to hire a new contractor and you'd reach capacity pretty quickly. I think that chicken and egg problem where we have to hire people to get the business, but we have to get the business to hire the people will be less of a problem going forward, relatively substantially, than it has been in the past. This has always been a issue that has haunted businesses, whether we hire for the business or we get the business for the hire, and we promise questionable stuff in the pitches. Essentially, I think that's going to be less of a problem going forward.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a great
good chat.
Yeah.
All right, guys. If you have any questions, let us know. Cheers. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Peace.